So let's just start out with the obvious. Game of Thrones, Season 5 finale, Episode 10. We'll recap the episode, but let's just start out with the ending. So Jon Snow's dead. Or at least it's presumed that this man is dead. Ollie, that stupid fuck, excuse my language, which I told y'all about, or we discussed about a couple episodes back. He's not going to forgive Jon at all. So he lures him out. There's word of your Uncle Benjen, who we haven't seen since season 1 around that time. And he's like, oh, a wildling saw him. Come out. And then everybody's there from the Night's Watch, and they all just start taking turns stabbing Jon Snow. And every time they stab him, they say, for the watch. Like trying to justify the reason that they're doing it, because again, they think Jon bringing the wildlings in, he's just basically running them into the ground. So he gets stabbed, and I'm like, whoa, did he really get stabbed? I thought maybe wildlings were going to come help him or something along those lines. And they just keep stabbing him, and then Ollie comes up and he looks at Ollie. He even says Ollie's name. And I think Ollie kind of regrets what he did. I don't know if it was all Ollie's idea. Who knows? But Ollie ends up giving the last stabbing blow. And the last thing we get is Jon Snow laying in the snow, bleeding out. And it looks like he's pretty much dead. Here's my only saving grace. And this is why Jon Snow being dead hasn't really hit home. Is because Melisandre marched into Castle Black right before Jon was killed, or right before the scene cut to Jon being killed. The only explanation I see is her and Sir Devos bringing Jon back to life, or saving his life. That's the only way I see Jon coming back to life. I don't know where the books are. I think the books in the show are caught up. I'm not sure. Don't ask me. I don't read the books. So I don't know if Jon is alive in the books, if the books in the show are at the same spot. So we're all kind of like, what the fuck? But that's my only way of seeing it, is if Queen Melisandre brings Jon Snow back to life with Sir Devos. And yeah, so let's get that dramatic stuff out the way, and let's start from the top to the bottom of the episode. So to start out, we have Queen Melisandre standing in her tent, and the icicles begin to melt, which what I thought last weekend was icicles forming, which would kind of mean that like the White Walkers are kind of approaching, but the icicles were melting. She comes out all happy, reporting to Stannis, the gods have accepted our sacrifice. They're beginning to melt away the snow and the ice. And then one of Stannis' men comes up looking just so defeated, and Stannis kind of looks bothered himself. He's like, speak up, what is it? He said, the men have left in the night. They've taken all the horses. And he's like, how many? And the guy says, half. And I'm just like, wow. And the look on Queen Melisandre, she knew it was over, the look on her face. And then another man comes up and he's like, your lord, I have something to say. And he's like, well, it can't be as bad as what my guy just told me. We just lost half our army. And he's like, come follow me. And his wife ends up hanging herself, I think because of Shireen's death. And just like that, Stannis has lost everything. When this season started, when Stannis comes riding in, or whenever, I'm not sure if it was the first episode of the season, he comes riding in saving everybody in Castle Black and the Crows. His army is looking stout, ready to go. He's getting supporters from this way, that way, and he's marching. He was looking like a good competitor, good player for the Game of Thrones, for the actual throne. He kills his daughter. He sacrifices her. Half his men and all his horses leave him. His wife kills herself. And then, right after he gets that news and sees the wife hanging there, another man comes up. So third time's a charm. This has got to be great news. A third man comes up and says, the queen, the Red Queen, the bitch that we've been listening to, she just stormed off on a horse. She's out. And Stannis just, he knows. So they begin to walk because they don't have any horses, and it just looks so depressing. And I feel bad for Stannis, like the look on his, I feel like he always tried to do the right thing to get him to the throne, up into the point of sacrificing his daughter. Even his own men were like, you can't do that. So at this point, I feel bad, but not bad enough for sacrificing Shireen. And if you didn't know, I mean, you could just tell, like, he was marching to his death. His men knew. They get there. He's like, set up a trench over there. I want men 300 yards over there. We got to set up for the siege in the morning when the sun rises. And the Boltons come out. And he's like, there's going to be no siege in the morning. And you see them come out with the horses. I'm like, they don't look like that many. Then they go to the widescreen shot, and you see the horses kind of surrounding them. Sansa looking down, and you just know it's over. So as the fighting's going on, in my head, I'm like, And there ends the Baratheon. Stannis, the last brother, done. And he still goes out fighting. He's able to take out those two Bolton fighters, I guess you could say. And then he looks like he's maybe going to escape or kind of just drift off and maybe just end up as Stannis, like the roamer or something. But then Brienne comes across him, finds him. He's like, I didn't know the Boltons had women in their army. She's like, I'm not. I was the king's guard to your brother. You killed him with dark magic, didn't you? And he confesses, and she asks if he has anything to say. I thought he was going to say something sweet about his daughter, just something like that. But he just kind of knows that the final steps and decisions he made were just wrong, and he didn't have anything to say. So it's presumed we didn't actually see it. That's the kind of thing in Game of Thrones. If I don't see the blade like take the head off or slit the throat, I don't think that person's dead. But I presume that Brienne killed Stannis because that was one of her goals, to protect Lady Catelyn's girls and get revenge on the man who killed Renly, which was Stannis. And R.I.P. Stannis. So then we'll jump to Sansa and Reek and Winterfell. As the army's marching out, this is the perfect time for Sansa to like get the fuck out the castle, and she can light that candle. And as she's lighting the candle, you see that Brienne and Podrick are kind of moving. I'm like, this is going to be perfect timing. She's going to light the candle right when Brienne walks away, and that's exactly what happens. She lights the candle, she sits there and waits, and pretty much nobody sees it. So then, Ramsay's crazy bitch, she ends up finding Sansa with Reek, and she's like, I want to die on my own terms. You can't kill me. Ramsay needs me. And she's like, he doesn't need you, just enough to have sex with you and produce offspring. After that, we can start plucking you away piece by piece. And she goes to light up the arrow. I'm like, something's going to happen. She's going to shoot and miss and just try to scare her. But Reek, or I guess we could say Theon, pushes her ass. They wrestle, and they throw her ass deep off the side of the wall. Base plant. She's dead. She's done. And I feel like when Ramsay sees that, he's going to know that had something to do with Sansa and Reek, or both. And last thing we see of Sansa and Reek is them hopping over the wall. And I don't know where they're headed. That's my question. I would not go to Castle Black. Because first of all, I wouldn't just go more north. She can't go more south because Cersei and them are looking for her ass. So I feel like she's got to meet up with Brienne somehow. I just don't know how it's going to happen. Or maybe Littlefinger next season will come in and swoop. I don't know. But her and Reek just kind of out on their own. I don't know what they plan to accomplish. But that was the only time we saw them. So then we'll jump into the first part of Castle Black, where it's Jon and Sam sitting down. And Jon is still just having like post-traumatic stress disorder. He's still reminiscing about the fight that they had. And there's so many White Walkers. And forget the dragon glass. It wouldn't have been enough. And Sam's like, you were able to kill him? And Jon's like, yeah, with my Valyrian steel, which like only I have. How many of those are in the Seven Kingdoms? And they're all just kind of sitting there depressed. And Sam says he wants to go to the Citadel. He wants to become a maester. And he thinks he'll be more help to Jon when the White Walkers or when anything comes, if he can train his mind, or if he can read up on history, see if he can find any weaknesses, maybe ways that somehow they can get weapons, just any kind of way that he can get this smarter, because he's not physically capable of helping Jon. He's not a great fighter. He's not going to be there shoulder to shoulder like someone like Thormont or anything like that that can really fuck shit up. So he's like, let me help you with my mind. Send Gilly and the baby away with me. It's not safe. If she dies up here, I'm never going to forgive myself. So Jon reluctantly lets Sam and Gilly and the baby leave. And now it's Jon by himself, straight up in Castle Black. So let's jump into damn Arya killing the shit out of Mary Trent. There was a lot of grotesqueness in this episode, and this was one of them. So, as I thought before, she was going to pose as one of his young girls, and it looks like he just likes to beat the shit out of young girls. He starts wailing on them, and there's one girl, she's just kind of taking his blows and not breaking down. And he's like, I want time with you alone. She pulls off the face, and it's Arya, and she just goes straight in for his eye, takes one eye out, goes straight in for the other eye, takes it out, gives him a couple stabs in the front, stuffs his mouth so he can't scream, and she just starts looking like sadistic as shit. She's like, do you know who I am? Do you know why I killed you? You killed one of the best swordsmen. Do you even know what I'm talking about? Do you know who I am? He pulls the thing out of her mouth, out of his mouth, and she just begins to go on another rant, stands behind him, slits the throat, clean. So then she goes back to the House of Black and White, knowing that she was gonna, like, it wasn't, like he said, it wasn't her life to take. And she took it anyway, using the many-faced gods as her help, and that's not how it goes. So then when he drank the poison, I was like, did he really just give up his life to make up for the life that she took? And then she starts peeling off face after face after face, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? And it ends up on her face. So did somehow maybe she drank it? I don't. That part kind of just, maybe it's more well just described in the books. And then she starts going blind, and that's the last we see her. So I'm not quite sure what kind of happens with her after that point. So then we get a quick scene of Dorne, Jaime, his daughter, and Bronn. They hop on the boat. They're sailing off back to King's Landing, and I knew it. Before we get to that, Jaime ends up confessing to her, his daughter, that he kind of uses what he was told last episode. It doesn't matter who we love. We can't choose that. It just happens. You've fallen in love with someone from Dorne, and you're from King's Landing, so it's easy for us to fall. And he's kind of beating around the bush, but doesn't get straight to it. And she knows. She's like, I know you're my dad. I just always had a feeling. And he goes to give her a hug, and this bitch starts bleeding like Joffrey was from the nose and everything, and just passes out. And I thought it was like real significance that they showed that kiss between the two, because she poisoned her. The same poison that girl used to scratch Bronn with, one of the sand snakes. I'm guessing it was the same poison, because she also started to bleed from the nose. She had the antidote, and I was just like, she's so salty. So it makes me think Jaime has to go back and fuck shit up. He has to. So then we jump to Meereen, and it's basically it's a Where's Waldo / Daenerys version. They gotta find her. They have no idea. There's a good exchange between Tyrion and Jorah, and they start going at it. I'm like, Jorah, you need to calm down, because Tyrion like saved your life, even though he got you exiled again. He's the main reason that you're kind of still alive. And then so they leave it. So Jorah goes out with her little friends with benefits buddy, and they go out to look for her, and they leave Tyrion in charge of Meereen. And my man finally shows up. Varys shows up saying he's here to help. And who better to run a city that's corrupt with killing and violence and money and all this stuff than someone who just came from it? Meaning Tyrion just came from King's Landing, where they got the same stuff going on over there. He's already had experience with it. He can come to Meereen and just kind of help rule shit. And I think it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with that. I was just excited to see Varys again. Then we run into Dany. She's out there with Drogon just hanging out. This man's eating. She just looks totally just beat up, ripped apart, because she's been flying all over, living out in the steeps and the mountains. And she still can't control Drogon. Yes, he came to save her, but she's like, we need to go back. He's not having it. He's killing things, brushing her off. So she goes out walking. The Dothraki come out of nowhere. And when I mean and not just out of nowhere, they are rolling deep. I don't know who's ruling them right now, but they're rolling deep. And she gets surrounded. That's kind of the last we see of Dany for the episode, and that makes me think that she can somehow rally them back onto her side, because she could use that. Because the Unsullied, yeah, they look great, but they haven't really shown much here in this last season other than getting pretty much killed. So she could use another. They were rolling a couple thousand. She could definitely use that on her side. So then we jump into, which I kind of felt was too long and drawn out. We jump into the Cersei and her finally getting out of prison and confessing. And in her mind, she's like, after she admits her first confess that she had an affair with her cousin, that was her husband's squire, she thought that was it. And the High Sparrow, he's like, no, you still have to go to trial. And she's trying to avoid trial at all cost. And then we had the famous Cersei nude scene that's been building up for, I guess, ever since it was announced that there was going to be a Cersei nude scene. I don't know how long ago. But like you could see as the episodes were getting closer and closer, people were getting more hype and hype online, like the Cersei nude scenes coming up. And there was all this privacy, how they didn't let anybody outside of who was supposed to shoot even look at her nude, and they had to pay so much money. And when she was just getting her hair cut off in the chamber, I'm like, that wasn't really much of anything. It was dark. You couldn't really see anything. And I'm like, okay, that was hyped up for nothing. And then when she has to walk through the whole entire city, I'm like, okay. In the beginning, I'm like, she had the least nude scene out of any of kind of the main female characters, from Dany and all the other women we've seen naked, Queen Marjorie, and so on and so on. And they just had her in the dark chamber. I'm like, she had it easy compared to all of them. But Cersei, in her, I guess, character in real life, did you see how many people were in the city that she had to walk through over and over and over? That was a lot of people for a news scene, so hats off to her. And then, so this is her walk of atonement. She has to walk through the whole city. Basically, she has to walk back to the keep, which the High Sparrow says he'll allow her to go back there until her trial comes. And in my mind, if I'm her, y'all aren't getting me out of the Red Keep, because she has the guards there, the knights. You're gonna have to come get me forcefully, and it ain't happening. So if I'm her, I'm just kind of like sucking my teeth, making this walk, and getting in there and getting to safety. And that's pretty much what she does. It started out calm and stuff. I'm like, okay, no one's throwing anything. But that's because they were kind of around more noble people. But then when she got down to kind of like flea bottom-ish area, they started throwing things at her, spitting at her, trying to push her down. Her feet are just shredded. And she finally gets in there with her uncle, the maester that she put in charge. And they finally end up resurrecting the mountain. And he says his only goal is he will not speak until anyone that's wronged you is killed. And the look on Cersei's face, she's back, like, in the castle. She had her little suffering, but I don't really see her suffering again, ever, unless she's killed. Because she's going to be under so much protection. She has her own personal, it looks like, zombie bodyguard who can't be killed. And it's going to really make for a real interesting next season. So then to end the episode, we basically have Queen Melisandre riding back into Castle Black, the Night's Watch. She runs into Jon and tells him, well, she doesn't say anything. Sir Davos asks, what about Stannis? And you can see the look on her face knowing he's dead. And he asks, what about the princess, Shireen? And I think Queen Melisandre's like, she knew she fucked up on that one. You didn't have to take it that far and kill her. And then, so that pretty much wraps up the episode. That was a long discussion, but it was pretty, like, we hit every character this episode. I guess they didn't want to leave anybody out. And it was pretty in-depth. So what, kind of the big build-ups of what we're looking for Season 6. Is Jon Snow dead? That's number one. The main thing. Is he dead? If he's dead, wow, that's a fucked up way to just kind of toss it on us like that. I mean, he got stabbed repeatedly, and Ollie did it. Ollie gave him the final blow, and it's my only thing is that does Queen Melisandre bring him back? Does that red fire magic somehow bring him back to life? Because if not, I don't see how he comes back to life. And if Jon Snow is to die, it's like the only one that's left alive that you can cheer for is Dany. There's no one. There's two negatives and a positive. There's what's happening in King's Landing and the White Walkers on one end, and you have Dany on the other. Because if Jon Snow's dead, like it's over. And then so besides what's happening with Jon Snow, we also have to look forward to Cersei is back under protection and she's ready to just execute the shit out of people. Is Arya blind? Like, what happened there? Was she poisoned? Is it just something that takes away her eyes? Was that even actually her face after we saw all that exchange? What's going on over there? And will Dany be able to rally the Dothrakis? I think she will, or why else reintroduce them back into the story? I think she's going to have them on her side, along with whatever she's able to control in Marine with the Unsullied. And hopefully next season she begins to make her march at some point. And like we said before, there are no more, the Baratheons are done. If Stannis was really killed by Brienne, there's no more Baratheons, and pretty much so the only people that are in contention for the throne are Littlefinger, Cersei, the Boltons, and Dany. And that's it. Especially if Jon Snow's done. We're running out of people to take the seat. And basically all I can end this off with is Jon better come back. He really better come back. So we'll see what happens, guys. That's the last, I guess, review we're going to have until Season 6. If you guys have any shows you recommend that I should check out and watch and also review, let me know. I've never been a really big show watcher, but once I got into like Game of Thrones and then also Walking Dead, like that, like those two shows are great. But unfortunately, they're not year-long shows. So maybe there's something else I can look into and review. So I appreciate it, guys. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you have not already. Hit the like button. Tell a friend. Rest in peace, Jon Snow. And I appreciate it.